This is a man named Augustus Derico. They were running a cloud seeding operation, and it's interesting because right during this time of when the cloud seeding was going on, howdy y'all, I'm Brylan. The Texas flood death toll tops 100. It's over 100 actually, and more than 160 people are still missing. Now this is an absolute terrible tragedy. It seems like the death toll is going up literally like every hour. We're hearing about new people that have been found that are not alive anymore. It's absolutely terrible. In fact, here's a picture of a little shoe. The unimaginable grief and loss being felt by, tragically, many parents. Now, we're going to talk about, in this video, weather modification. I'm going to show you some things from, actually, the CEO of one of the weather modification companies that was just doing some weather seeding, cloud seeding things, the days leading up to this tragedy. Now, I'm not saying anything for sure. I'm just pointing out that there's some odd things going on. I think we need to be aware of this. Real quick, would you consider hitting that thumbs up button? You know when you like this video, it'll get pushed out to more people, and it would really help spread the truth. But I have to point this out first and foremost. This is what the left is turning this tragedy into. They want to make it all about me, myself, and I. They want to turn it into identity politics like they do with everything.
Just happened in Texas. The fact that they slashed the National Weather Service, whether or not that was the direct proximate cause of those deaths, the fact that we're having that conversation is the issue. The fact that we aren't sure is the problem. And so we need to hold to what we deserve. We should not be dissuaded, especially as Black women, as women of color, as people of color. We should not be convinced that we don't have power.
This disaster happened because of racism. Of course, right? Like, we all knew that. Oh. This is disgusting, by the way. Listen to Wesley Hahn make a rebuttal here. And this guy's awesome.
And I also want to say one more thing about Stacey Abrams' ridiculous comments. You know, I've been Black too my entire life. And when this incident happened, the last thing I thought about was the color of someone's skin. I thought about these American babies that lost their lives. And so she should be ashamed of herself. We must condemn it. And I welcome any Democrat that will join us on Friday to mourn the loss of the lives of these babies.
I love seeing these wacky lefties just get absolutely owned because nothing that they stand for or regurgitate has any basis in truth. They can't actually persuade you with any type of truth, so they have to manipulate the truth, which is just a lie, by the way, because they can't convince you otherwise. Here's a story you're not seeing covered very much at all. This is why I love Ground News, because they show you how the left and the right are covering the news, even the news that you haven't heard of. The left is saying Camp Mystic's emergency plan passed state inspection 2 days before deadly flooding. Can you believe that? And the right is saying that even though it was approved, the plan was not very concrete, but was nevertheless still approved. In fact, if you're sick of guessing what mainstream media is telling you the truth, Ground News shows you just what news outlets are biased. Their blind spot feature shows you when the left or the right isn't covering the news that you should know about. You can also see who owns each news outlet. If you go to ground.news/Brylan or scan the QR code on the screen, you can get 40% off the same Vantage plan that I personally use. Thank you for supporting the sponsor of this video, Ground News. It helps me to continue to bring you daily news videos that you can trust. Now, one thing that's being talked about is that this area of Texas, the Kerr County, is prone to flooding, that there's been lots of floods. There have been. It seems like there's some flooding that goes on every handful of years. And there was actually a major flood, not quite on the same scope as what we're seeing today. But back in 1987, a lot of people are saying that this is common, that major floods like this happen every so often. However, you have to keep in mind that back in 1987, when the flood hit the Guadalupe River, about 10 people that lost their lives. And in this 1987 flooding, it was due to a bus that didn't actually get through this low river bridge in time. And so that's why there was really any deaths at all during that flooding. So the fact that we have over 100, it's like 105, the very last time I checked. Unfortunately, we're going to see that number go up. This is a massively different story here. And the fact that this essentially all took place at 5 to 11 inches of rain, and the Guadalupe River rose like 26 feet. Some estimates say 28 feet. Some say more. In 45 minutes is just absolutely insane. There's actually some interesting history with Camp Mystic, a Christian camp called Mystic, by the way. Very odd. I won't go into the details of the history of Camp Mystic and the oddities there, but here's some footage of the Guadalupe River. This is sped up. Now you can see that this is it's rising incredibly fast. I mean, when you just scroll through here, look at this. I mean, within a matter of just a handful of minutes. And then here it is towards the end here. You see, just within a matter of minutes, this river rose to the height of the bridge and is carrying a house with it. Now, there's a company called Rainmaker. The CEO spoke out about cloud seeding that was going on right before the Texas floods. Again, I'm not saying that any of this is necessarily exactly what caused it, but it's interesting, and I think we need to be looking at what is happening with weather modification, and the fact that they claim that weather modification couldn't have caused these floods because there's not enough information to say that it could have. But doesn't that prove the point that this astronomically disastrous flood that we haven't seen since 87, and it blows 87 away in terms of death toll as well, the fact that there's not enough information and cloud seeding and weather modification was going on directly before these events. In fact, there was questions asked by Brian Gamble. He said, for public accountability, can you confirm, this is to the Rainmaker CEO, can you confirm with full transparency whether any cloud seeding or atmospheric modification operations by your company or affiliates were conducted in or around Hunt, Texas, or the upper Guadalupe River Basin on July 3rd or July 4th. Given the deadly consequences of the July 4th flooding and ongoing speculation about potential role of weather modification, the public is owed a full transparency and factual clarity. Now, General Michael Flynn actually posted, I would love to see a response to this as well. I think we all would. Now, Brian Gamble also included, as a part, page 2 of this request, a map of where the weather modification in Texas happens. When you look at this map, you can see that this green area, the red area, the brown area, the yellow area are all areas where cloud seeding and weather modification happens. It's hard to see, but in the middle of this circle, you can see Kerr County is directly connected to this green area here where major weather modification and cloud seeding happens. And it's interesting because right during this time of when the cloud seeding was going on, you can see that the wind was blowing very fast towards the northwest, right in line with this cloud seeding being carried into a place like Kerr County, which is already susceptible to floods. But what can happen if you enhance the weather that causes the flooding in a place already susceptible to flooding? This is a man named Augustus Derico, and he is actually the CEO of Rainmaker. And they were the ones that they were running a cloud seeding operation in the days leading up to this disaster. Now, this was his response to the question of by Brian Gamble. He said, the natural disaster in the Texan Hill Country is a tragedy. My prayers are with Texas. Rainmaker did not operate in the affected area on the 3rd or the 4th or contribute to the floods that occurred over the region. Rainmaker will always be transparent. Now, again, I'm trying to give you both sides here, those who are concerned about it, and then those who are directly involved in this weather modification. Augustus goes on, a review of the timeline of events. Overnight, from July 3rd to the 4th, moisture surged into the Hill Country from the Pacific as remnants of Tropical Storm Barry moved across the region. At 1 a.m. on July 4th, the National Weather Service, which we work closely with to maintain awareness of severe weather systems, issued a flash flood warning for San Angelo, Texas. Note, summer convective cloud seeding operations in Texas do not occur during overnight hours. At 4 a.m. on July 4th, the NWS issued a life-threatening emergency warning and flooding ensured. So again, a lot of people saying that this warning that came far too late. Augustus goes on, did Rainmaker conduct any operations that could have impacted the floods? No. Now, of course, this would be his answer. No. Hold on a second. The last seeding mission prior to the July 4th event was during the early afternoon of July 2nd, when a brief cloud seeding mission was flown over the eastern portions of south central Texas, and 2 clouds were seeded. These clouds persisted for about 2 hours after seeding before dissipating between 3 p.m. and 4 p.m. Natural clouds typically have lifespans of 30 minutes to a few hours at most, with even the most persistent storm systems rarely maintaining the same cloud structure for more than 12 to 18 hours. The clouds that were seeded on July 2nd dissipated over 24 hours prior to the developing storm complex that would produce the flooding rainfall. Goes on to say that to prevent any risk of flooding from cloud seeding, Rainmaker suspended operations. And then he goes on, I encourage the meteorology community to ask questions and scrutinize our claims, and we will continue to be fully transparent in answering. And then, of course, everybody in the comments are just like, whoa, like, yeah, I don't like this. You are doing things that you should not be doing. One thing we don't know for sure is how the breakdowns of the clouds occur. Now, again, they'll make the excuse that we don't have enough information to blame weather modification, and it hasn't been used long enough. Enough studies have been done to prove that weather modification causes these types of flooding, so we're going to say for sure, definitively, that it doesn't. In fact, here's Augustus Derico talking about Genesis 1, where we are given dominion over the earth.
Rainmaker's mission is to make Earth habitable. And that's a deliberately obscure, sort of provocative phrase because it is habitable, right? Like we do live here already. But we don't live in what I think our mandate from Genesis 1:26 through 28 tells us to. Like, we do not have stewardly dominion over the skies. And consequently, we suffer from droughts. We have all of this wasteland in the American Southwest and the Mojave and the Sonora. What we want to do is we want to take, with caution and with discretion and with input from local constituencies, we want to take all of the non-arable land that we have. We want to take all of the cities that are currently suffering from lack of water supply and produce more water such that that land can become biodiverse and lush and green. And really, like the Midwest, the Great Plains, if not forests even higher in trophic level than that, it should extend throughout all of America. Like, all of America should be green. All of it should be lush.
It's almost like saying, and even if his intentions are good here, it's like saying God's control of the weather isn't able to reach certain places or isn't able to make lush and green certain places, so we have to do it for him. We have to take control of the skies. I personally vehemently disagree with that, and I think trying to control weather patterns and add moisture where God did not intend it to be naturally. Also, keep in mind, this is Psalm chapter 135. Look at verse 6 and 7. Whatever the Lord pleases, he does, in heaven and on earth, in the seas and all the deeps. He it is who makes the clouds rise at the end of the earth, who makes lightnings for the rain, and brings forth the wind from his storehouses. God is completely in control of everything. He doesn't need us to control the natural weather patterns that he has complete dominion and complete sovereignty over. But hey, let me know your thoughts about all this in the comment section. I would love to hear from you. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, join this community. I would love to hear from you on a regular basis. And please hit that thumbs up button, when you like this video, to get pushed out to more people, and it would really help spread the truth. All right, I'll see you in the next video. Bye.